Hi folks, back again, Bathrobe Chronicles number 188, part 2, and as I said, most of you will have absolutely no interest in this. I'm talking about the work environment that I just left and how the people have been treated where I was working. Okay, so we're up to the point where without even consulting with, or whatever term you want to use, talking with the people who are going to have to do these extra duties, answer the phones for 4 additional agencies without even consulting with them, if you will. They just said, this is what you're going to do, period. You know, that's it. Now, after that happened, this is the greatest one. There are quite a few. Let me see. In the city of Norfolk, there are. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 emergency rooms. In other words, decent-sized hospitals, and of course, they all have emergency rooms. Now, if someone goes to any of these emergency rooms, excuse me. With a psychiatric problem, so-called. In other words, they call the police and they say, I'm going to kill myself or whatever. And those kinds of things. And of course the paramedics come up, the police come up, and they haul their butts to emergency rooms. Now, what happens when they get to the emergency rooms is until recently, the emergency rooms had crisis counselors, for lack of a better word, or counselors, or whatever term you want to use, mental health counselors. And so when the person, for instance, got to Norfolk General Hospital, then Norfolk General staff would go interview them and see what was going on. And if they felt the person needed to be in a psychiatric hospital and was able to give consent or what have you. In other words, they're with it enough to know where they are, who they are, and all that kind of stuff. And informed consent, and they had a bed at Norfolk General, then they would admit them. Now, the other 2 hospitals, DePaul and Lee, didn't have or don't have psychiatric units. So, anyway, Lee had their own crisis worker also. Same thing. She would come in, talk to the people, and so on and so forth. And Lee was part of the Centera group. In other words, I don't know how far they are around the country and all of that, but I know there are 4 Centera hospitals in our area. And the Centera evaluators, if you will, the psychiatric evaluators, excuse me, my mouth is dry. They started out with nurses, you know, RNs, and they call them PERS nurses, acronym, P-E-R-S. Frankly, I don't know what that means. I think it's like psychiatric emergency response, something or another, whatever. About 4 years ago, in order to cut costs, Centera fired the nurses, ostensibly. In other words, said, hey, you're no longer going to be here. And they hired people who were cheaper. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying that's what happened. Now, they had one person who was on call for 3 hospitals, actually 4 hospitals. And these poor ladies, 99% of them were women, I mean, you know, they were overwhelmed. Sometimes they would start a shift, they would have 5 people waiting, and then it was just, you know, boom, 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 one person after another. So, that's the PERS people who were doing the evaluations in Norfolk General Hospital, Lee Memorial, Bayside, and Princess Anne. So, now, them and they, you know, the supervisors, my former supervisors, what they decided is they seemingly made a deal with Centera, and they said that the emergency services workers would take over the jobs of the PERS people, you know, the people who were doing the evaluations for Norfolk General. Now, how they got them to agree to that, I'm not quite sure. And of course, they didn't come to the actual workers who were going to be doing these evaluations and say, hey guys, what do you think? Is this a good idea? If it is a good idea, do you have any suggestions how we can make your job easier or how we can make this more efficient? No, they did nothing like that. All them and they did was said, this is what you're going to do. Now, here's the stumbling point in my mind. Let me see, I have this somewhere here. Bear with me. Now, one of the things about doing evaluations in the state of Virginia, and I surely cannot speak for other states, I think most states use medical doctors or licensed clinical social workers or whatever. In the state of Virginia, in order to do this, you have to have a master's degree and have this certification. Now, the certification is not that big of a deal, frankly. You watch a bunch of movies, you watch a couple of evaluations, you have your supervisor, yes, them and they, watch you do evaluations, then they sort of sign off on you, and you're considered certified.